So not everyone is a numbers person, but I'm a numbers person, so this isn't so bad for me, but for some of you, I know it's hard to follow. We'll try and make it not so hard. But if you look on page 22 in your packets, you'll find a copy of the internal statements for the fiscal year ending January 31st, 2019. There's also copies of the audited financial statements available from Sean. They were also online with the other discernment materials for the weekend. So at this point, I'll ask Sean to come and give you the numbers story.
Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to be able to stand and to review with you this evening the financial results for MCEC for last fiscal year, which ended January 31st, 2019. As Linda mentioned, I'm presenting tonight the internal version of the statements, which are a little easier to follow if you're not an accountant. If you are an accountant and you're curious as to what our audited statements look like and would like to see them, please speak to me at any time when you see me around at break or in between sessions, and I'd be happy to get a copy of those for you. In terms of our actual financial results for last year, this was the first full year in terms of the new arrangement and relationship between the regional churches and Mennonite Church Canada, with a changed method for donations from individuals and from churches going to MC Canada and flowing through MCEC. And so we did enter the year with a little bit of uncertainty, not 100% sure exactly how this was going to work and work out. I'm pleased to say that while most of you would probably say that an accountant's work is boring all of the time, this was a particularly boring year in terms of our finances, which is to say that things went roughly the way that we had budgeted, roughly the way that we had planned, without any really major hiccups or unexpected things occurring. So from page 22, or if you can actually read the small numbers up on the screen there, in our revenue section, there's only a couple things I would want to note. There's a new line in the revenue section that would not have been in the documents last year if you saw the budget presentation last year. Under the new covenant arrangement with Mennonite Church Canada, when an MCEC constituent, as an individual, sends an undesignated donation to Mennonite Church Canada, that donation is credited back to MCEC in terms of our covenant giving to Mennonite Church Canada during the year. So the number that's listed as revenue, individuals and churches, and then in brackets MC Canada of just over $50,000 represents donations from churches or individuals that went directly to MC Canada in Winnipeg, but end up being credited back to MCEC as part of the revenue sharing arrangement between the regional churches and the national church. So in total, there were just over $150,000 of donations from individuals that made their way from MCEC constituents to help the wider church. The revenue from churches in terms of the giving from your budgets and from congregations came in at just over $1,850,000. We were about $23,000 short of what we had budgeted for, and this is a decline of about $100,000 from the same number last year. There's also a line for relational witness giving, which is money that was given to MCEC to support various witness projects or partner projects that was passed dollar for dollar from MCEC to Mennonite Church Canada, designated to those projects during the year, of just under $300,000. So at the end of the year, we ended up with $2,396,734 that flowed in as new revenue from external to MCEC during the year. There's just a couple comments I'd make about that. One is, please take back to your congregations and the members of it that have supported MCEC and MC Canada this year our extreme gratitude for the contributions that are made that allow us to do the work that we feel God is calling us to do. If I can put in one small plug, roughly 25 to 30% of the revenue we get from churches comes in late December or January. All of the expenses that you see do not wait until late December or January for me to pay them. If there was a way for your congregations to consider spreading out your giving during the year using quarterly or monthly or even half-year payments. It would assist us in maintaining our cash flow such that we have the money to pay the expenses easily when we want to pay the expenses. It always works out at the end of the year. It's a great blessing from God that this is the way that this occurs. But it is a little nerve-wracking to sit in the November Finance Council meeting and say, well, we're supposed to get $450,000 in the next 2 months, and I'm trusting it's going to come in because I've already spent it. I'm sure that your pastors in your churches would find it a little nerve-wracking if you waited until the end of the year to pay all of their salary, because that's when all of your tithes came in. And so if you could take that message back to your finance team, and if there was a way to work with us to be able to spread that giving out instead of having it be only at the end of the year, we would really appreciate it. In terms of our expenses, so of that $2,396,734 of external revenue, $1,362,467 was paid out to our various ministry partners through our camps, our schools, and the wider church. Some of this was money that was designated to witness. Some of this was money that was undesignated to just support the ongoing operations of these various partners who do great work in terms of supporting the work of the church and in terms of making disciples in our wider constituency. So that leaves us with operating fund revenue of just over $1,030,000 to fund the ongoing operations internal to Mennonite Church Eastern Canada. There isn't much for me to say about our operating fund expenditures. If anyone is wondering why David overspent his budget in the Executive Council area, this was simply an accounting designation that we made that I'll talk about more tomorrow. But the cost of sending delegates from MCEC to the Mennonite Church Canada gathering, under the new system, there are more delegates, and so the cost has roughly doubled, a little more than doubled from what it's been in the past. So we made the decision, even though we hadn't budgeted for it because we had room in the budget overall, we made the decision to spread those expenses over the 2 years in between Mennonite Church Canada gatherings so that we're not having to budget with $0 of expense for delegates in 1 year and $40,000 in the next year. We've spread it out so that it's an even booking of expense in each particular year. And so that was not budgeted for in the Executive Council budget, which is why it was over by $10,000. But generally across the board, all of our councils and ministry areas spent just slightly under what we budgeted, and nothing of it was of a particular concern or of a systematic nature. So our total spending on actual MCEC internal programming was $1,198,317, which left us with a deficit of $164,051. By policy, we are able to draw from our reserve fund, the Faithful Steward Fund, 15% of what the balance was at the beginning of the year to help offset our operating deficits. That would have allowed us to pull up to $207,217 out of our reserves. But because of your support and because of the ongoing efforts of staff at MCEC, we were able to draw just the $164,051 out in order to balance the budget for this year. So overall, the financial performance was strong this year. We are extremely grateful for the support that we receive from all of you as individuals and congregations. And we just ask that you continue to pray and continue to support the different things that we are doing on your behalf and according to how we feel God is calling us in our ministries. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. So on page 8 in your discernment document, you can see the motion. I will make the motion that we accept the audited financial statements for the fiscal year ending January 31st, 2019, as printed.
Thank you, Sean and Linda, and it's exciting to hear about an unexciting year. We're looking for a seconder for that motion. If you could second it and say your name and your congregation. Someone prepared to venture forth? Thank you. Are there any further questions about the expense report as it has been presented for 2018 to the end of January of this year? Seeing no questions, then, so, we're voting even though we don't talk about voting until tomorrow? We haven't explained. Okay.
So this is the motion to accept the statement, not the
Right.
budget. So yes, we're
Right,
voting.
but this is right. So I know that there are quite a few people tonight who are not delegates, and that is wonderful. But it is only the delegates who are eligible to vote. And so we would ask that the delegates would vote at this time if you are in approval of the motion as presented up there. Could you please raise your hand? And are there any opposed? All right, the motion is carried. Thank you. And let me add a comment that we're grateful to all the congregations for your generosity in supporting us in this unexciting year in terms of our finances. And we ask for your help and continued support as we move ahead to the next year financially.